Just hello.
I just said hello, thanks for the talk,
Ah.
and then you responded back saying...
I'm terrible with my emails, so I was just checking. Are you good?
You need to do this without
Without this one?
without mic.
Yeah, that's our mic. Yeah.
Yeah, take it off. That one, yeah. Do this.
Do this, yeah. What about the fluffy?
Can't find it.
It's all right. So thank you for joining us again, Witness. So what was your question today?
3 weeks ago I had a conversation on why you critique liberalism, and you explained it to me, and it made a lot of sense. The one thing that I wanted to ask afterwards, which I forgot, is that there are another group of people who spend a great deal of time criticizing liberalism, and that is Tommy Robinson supporters, the DFLA, Combat 18, the supporters of Mark Collette.
Yep.
And these people are referred to as the far right, and they are the enemies of Muslims politically. So I wanted to ask you, how do you feel knowing that politically you have a similarity with them? You are both united in one thing, your criticism of liberalism. How does that make you feel?
Okay, that's a very interesting question, actually. The first thing is my critique was purely theological. It was not to do with the UK or politics. It was just to do with the idea that man is the center of the universe, from the perspective that man decides for himself what's best. We don't need revelation, and desires essentially dictate our lives. It wasn't to do with any political type of thing, but since you asked, I'll try and give a brief answer and get your thoughts, and we'll go back and forth on it. So the first point is, just because there may be critics of liberalism who happen to be critics of Islam as well, it doesn't really mean that we should give up our criticism of certain aspects of liberalism. Okay? Because of course there's certain aspects which may be good. Right. The second thing is, when it comes to the far right itself, the far right will definitely use what it wants to attack Islam. However, that doesn't mean Muslims should ally themselves or should go full swing into the arms of liberals and give up their own principles just to fit in and feel protected. Because ultimately, we as Muslims, we're not people of fashion, right? We're people of tradition. Whatever our tradition is, our belief in the Quran, our belief in the prophets, our belief in the early companions, the early Muslims, we try and stick to that. And if we happen to theologically disagree with the ideas of liberalism, and say certain people from the far right who are inclined, they sometimes use Christianity, right? If they seem to have ideas which are similar to us, I don't really see why that would be a problem.
Well, it would be a problem because, as you know, they are obviously enemies of Islam and Muslims. They don't like Islam or Muslims. And both of you spend time criticizing each other, challenging each other, and quite rightly so, because the things that Tommy says about Muslims, you challenge and say they're lies and whatnot. But it is worrying that they have the same political kind of leanings as you do in regards to the criticism and dismantling of liberalism. For instance, heaven forbid, if they came into power politically, liberalism would disappear. Liberalism would go.
And what would replace it?
Well, it's their. Well, I'm biased. I would say they're more fascist in the way they think. They would say that they're democratic and they're patriotic. But I would say there's a lot of totalitarianism and fascism in the way they talk about things politically.
Right.
So that would take over. That would be the ideologies that would take over.
Sure.
So the question then is turned over to you, because I said the same thing to a Christian. If the Christians took over in the UK politically, what would they do? And he told me, if the Muslims...
Well, it depends what type of Christians they are. Not the born-agains.
But then I would ask you the same hypothetical question. If through politics, through democracy, a Islamic political party came into power, would you get rid of liberalism as well?
Okay, I think there's a slight confusion here. The last time we had a discussion, I was just talking about the theological aspects of liberalism. I wasn't speaking about any political implications.
I understand, but what I'm saying is...
And also, I generally don't talk about politics.
I understand that, but it's just that even though you're addressing liberalism from the theological point of view,
yeah.
They do the same as well. It's both. That's what I'm saying.
No, but I don't think the far right does it theologically. I think they do it politically.
But when you spoke a bit, when you were talking to me and you were criticizing it, you did talk about...
I was talking about morality.
But you also talked about 1789, France, politically, how they had been inspired by liberalism, politically.
Yeah.
So a bit of politics did come.
You're right. But that was more of a historical thing. But what I was trying to get at, as Muslims in this country, we're not here to challenge the status quo. We're here as Muslims, as citizens of the land, to obey the law of the land and to live our lives in a way that we don't interfere with other people, they don't interfere with us, and we act in a way that we are good citizens and good ambassadors of Islam. So my conversation with you is just theological, right? Yeah. But I want to ask you a question here right now, right? So you said previously that you believe in God.
I still believe in a creator.
You still believe in a creator. And our conversation was about the creator being a moral guide. And liberalism today doesn't say the creator is a moral guide, right? So do you think today, and I'm going to give you one moral problem, and let's look at whether liberalism can answer it or Islam can, okay? So the problem is excessive materialism. Okay, I'm going to define what I mean, and I first want your thoughts whether it's a problem, then we'll look into solutions. So I'll define the problem. The problem we have today is that there is a huge excessive focus on materialism. A lot of people are competing with each other in terms of wealth, in terms of image, in terms of status. A lot of people are becoming depressed because they're on social media. They see people that are richer than them, happier than them, have a higher status than them. And we have a society which is geared towards this type of endless rat racing. Yeah? And this is obviously a problem, and it's leading to mental health issues, it's leading to loneliness, to social breakdown, to crime, to all these types of things, and ultimately unhappiness. I believe Islam has a solution, but before I get into that, do you believe materialism is a problem in today's world?
Materialism exists, yes, and it's a problem.
So give me an example, and why is it a problem?
To me, materialism would be basing your life on individual needs for your own benefit. So it could be, in a layman's example, buying cars, plural, when you don't need to have more than 2 cars, buying excessive designer clothing, stuff like that. Thinking more about keeping up with the Joneses, as they would say, you know, trying to materialistically define your self-worth from your material possessions. So it does exist, and there are a lot of people who indulge in it. There's no doubt about that, absolutely.
What do you think about the role of social media in exacerbating the problem of materialism?
Oh, it does. That does happen as well. A lot of people in the 21st century, they look to people who are called
social influencers.
Yeah, that's the word, yes. So yes, it does exist, and there are people logging onto various social media platforms and following the lead of these influencers. So it is a problem. But are you saying then that through the teachings of Islam, it would pull them away from that?
Before I get into that, I want to first extrapolate the magnitude of the problem, and before we get to the solution.
Okay. So, well, to me the magnitude is there, it's all around us. It's not really, it's not seen as criminal. It's not a criminal offense. Are there people who challenge it morally from all sectors? Yeah. But it's not a criminal offense, and you have the freedom to indulge in it, this materialism, or you have the freedom to turn your back on it.
Sure. And what do you think, I mean, you spent most of your life, I'm guessing, in the UK, and you know that our generation is very different to the generation that was born after 9/11, say, right? The people born after the year 2000. And their level of pressure to look better, the level of pressure to fit a certain narrative, it's a lot greater on younger people than it was in our generation. And this has led people to actually have this excessive type of obsession with the way they look on social media. And this is linked to depression, and there's actually studies that show the link between social media used by young people and depression. Because depression is essentially when you have a blueprint, but your reality doesn't match the blueprint. And if you look at everybody's world, what we see on social media is the best side of someone else's world. And most of us, when we're on social media, we see a world that we can never access.
Yeah, I don't dispute any of that, but are you saying that liberalism is allowing that to flourish?
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that. Yeah.
So yeah, I would agree with you in all of that, but like I said, it's a matter of choice. You can either go down that path or you can't, but it's not criminalized.
Okay, so about the choice thing. If we have a situation where you have a child and the child has a dangerous hammer next to them, or you have a situation where the hammer safely stayed put away, you can argue the child, we should give it a free choice. And if it wants to, it can play with the hammer and hurt itself, or if it wants to, it can leave it. But what's the responsible thing for an adult to do?
With the child, you wouldn't give the child choice. The child has not mentally developed enough to understand the dangers of the hammer.
Okay.
So the child would, at that age would not be given a choice. The parent or the adult would have to teach the child, be careful of that thing, it's dangerous.
Good. Now with adults, are they really any different to children when it comes to choices?
Theoretically, yes.
Theoretically.
They're supposed to be different because they are adults, so they would understand the pros and cons. That's the theory.
That's the theory. However, just like no matter how warm-blooded you are, if you're in a freezer, you're eventually by your environment. If you jog around in the freezer, if you try and do exercise, you try and warm yourself up, eventually you'll lose because the environment around you is going to overwhelm you, right? So the same with materialism. Materialism is a dangerous thing and it's all around us, and unless it's curtailed through moral teachings, then it's going to overwhelm and subdue people. And in that regard, adults are no less helpless than children in regards to their environment.
I'd need more persuading in regards to the adults. Do I believe that there are adults there who are immature, who are doing stupid things? Yes. But I would have to really study them to understand whether they are not aware of how stupid it is. Because some people, they know what they're doing, they don't care. So for instance, you have people here who might indulge in their consumption of alcohol. Now they are smart enough to know that too much alcohol will lead them to becoming drunk and antisocial. So they're not children, they know, but they still choose to go down that path. So as an adult, I can't say that they didn't know they were immature, they knew, but they chose that was their choice. Can that choice be taken away from them? Of course, in a totalitarian society, whatever. Can they be guided away from it? They can be morally through a religion or through a belief system. But I don't think they should be viewed as children because they're still adults and they know what they're doing.
Okay, so I'm going to make a point which may sound a bit controversial, but I'm going to try and back it up with some evidence. Most human beings, they are just as susceptible to their environment as children are, and there's an illusion of choice because most people, they don't make choices based upon what they like or what they believe to be true or rational. They make it according to what society tells them is right or wrong and what the social pressure or norm or fashion is.
There are people who do that, yeah, I won't deny that.
I would say the majority of people.
Majority will reluctantly curtail their morals based on changes in the law.
Because of the environment.
And the environment as well. That does happen, absolutely.
Yeah. And are you aware of psychological experiments which show human beings will do the wrong thing, something they believe to be wrong, purely to fit within the social circle? There's lots of experimentation to show this.
Oh yeah, I believe human beings will do that.
Yeah.
They will do that to fit in. Absolutely. There's no debate about
There's
that.
famous experiments like Solomon Asch and others which basically show that human beings, they will do something they believe to be wrong simply to fit within their peers. So why I want to get to is now liberalism, and I'm only talking not politically, morally. Liberalism facilitates materialism. So that's the first point I'm going to make. You can challenge it or we could have a discussion, but I believe this to be 100% true.
Liberalism facilitates materialism. I would like to know how.
Good. Here's how it does it. If you look at the Nike slogan, what is it?
Just do it.
Just do it. What is it really getting at? Do what you want. Do what you feel. And today we have this concept. Follow your heart. Be a free spirit. Do what you desire. and the celebration of me, celebrating yourself, embracing the ego. This is something in the 21st century, it's been accepted as the norm in especially the Western world and other parts of the world. And liberalism is the main facilitator of this, because liberalism makes the person the center of everything. So whatever the person wants to believe, whatever the person wants to do, and the belief in the hereafter, or the belief in revelation, or the belief in something beyond humans that is there to give us guidance, is discarded and put under the rug. And that's why liberalism facilitates uncurtailed materialism when revelation tries to stop it.
I wouldn't deny that about liberalism, but you and I, we both know we're in the United Kingdom, and politically or theologically, things become confusion, because we're in a country where they have feudalism, socialism, a bit of liberalism, a bit of capitalism, everything. So I can't blame liberalism completely, because we live in a society where we're using other things as well. So I could say feudalism probably does that, but from a caste system point of view, I don't know where someone of a higher caste will say that materialistically they are entitled to a lot of stuff. So I wouldn't just necessarily say it's liberalism. Does liberalism facilitate that? I would hope that you would like have some kind of philosopher who might have given a quote in regards to that. I'm not saying he doesn't, but I don't know enough about liberalism to say that it promotes and facilitates materialism.
Okay, so let's look at the philosophy of liberalism, right? What do you think are the base assumptions of liberalism?
Well, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, because it's been a while since university. But I would look at it would be addressing things like equality, liberty, of the freedoms that people have, their equality. It would address. That's from a political point of view. I don't know.
What about a moral point of view?
See that part? That's the part I don't know.
Okay, so from a liberal framework, who decides what's right and wrong?
I would say from a liberal framework, to me it's simple. Power. Who has the power will decide.
That's interesting. That's not my understanding of it, but maybe you're right. But my understanding of it is it's the individual who decides what's right and wrong.
No, but that kind of contradicts what you told me earlier, because you said some people will fit in, even though they don't believe in something. They will fit in with a group because that group has the power.
So do you mean by that the social power?
Yes. So that group has the power, so that individual can try to do what they want, but that group, because they have the power, they've decided what should be done, they will then punish that individual. So, and it's kind of, how should I put it, it's very hypocritical, it's very inconsistent, because that social group that has the power are cherry picking the parts of liberalism that they want to adhere to.
Yep.
So if that individual wishes to adhere to the part of liberalism that you've mentioned, where they're just thinking about themselves, the collective will say no.
Yeah, I get that, but what I'm trying to get to is this. Liberalism in of itself, because you can have a whole bunch of individuals that come together and they can choose any philosophy to be the right one. For fascism, liberalism, Marxism, whatever. But we're talking about the individual unit. From that perspective, liberalism basically says the individual chooses what's right and wrong for themselves.
But do you live in that world though?
No, we're talking about the theoretical framework.
Okay, the theoretical side of things.
Yeah.
Outside of the reality of the politics.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Then theoretically, rather than me agree to that, I would like you to give me an example, because I don't know.
Okay, so let's stick to something concrete that I think is a huge problem. In society today, it is accepted that the nuclear family is pretty much on its way out. The idea of a man, a woman coming together, raising a family is gone. What we have instead is a generation of people who have affairs, you change partners regularly, broken homes, children who aren't really raised in a nuclear family environment, and now we're seeing that the respect for women has gone down significantly, and we've seen the objectification of women, which feminism was trying to challenge. It's actually gotten much, much worse, and society is full of contradictions. I'll give you some contradictions which are popular. Say Kanye West, right? He is in vulgar videos where women are objectified, yet he says about his own daughter he doesn't want her wearing makeup. Then you get the rapper T.I., who does a virginity test on his daughter. At the same time, he's objectifying women. And, you know, it's a normal thing to call women in those videos hoes and this and that, right? And that is basically unchained liberalism, which comes back and hits you. Because when they were younger, they had no problem treating women like that. But as soon as their own women were being treated, or were going to be, then it's like, oh, we're not going to accept that. And this is what happens when the moral guide is nothing but your lower desires, which is what liberalism facilitates.
I will